The night sky above Zerath 9 burned like a shattered furnace. What had once been quiet, dry desert plains now thundered beneath the assault of the Valeth swarm. Their ships descended in shrieking dives, metallic wings catching the dying sunlight, blackening the horizon with shadow. The ground shook as if the planet itself was afraid of what crawled upon it. Commander Ethan Cole stood at the crumbling perimeter wall of Earth's last outpost. His armor was cracked, sand was caked into every joint, and his plasma rifle hummed with unstable energy. Around him, a few dozen soldiers remained, faces hollowed by exhaustion, eyes burning with defiance. They weren't heroes. They were survivors clinging to the edge of extinction. The Valeth came in waves. First, the small drone creatures, insectoid in form with blades instead of arms, scuttled and leapt with impossible speed. Behind them surged larger beasts, four-legged brutes armored in plates of chitin, their maws dripping acid that hissed when it touched metal. "Hold fire until they close," Ethan bellowed, voice cutting through the storm. Bolts of plasma tore into the night. The line of soldiers fired in disciplined bursts, dropping drones in showers of sparks, but for everyone that fell, 3 more appeared. The swarm didn't fight like an army. It fought like hunger given flesh. Explosions rumbled across the outpost as defensive turrets collapsed under the onslaught. The ground was slick with alien ichor, but still the tide pressed forward, relentless. Ethan's rifle overheated, forcing him to slam a new charge pack into place. His pulse pounded like war drums. He knew this wouldn't be enough. Then the sky ripped open. A streak of silver light plunged down, faster than any drop pod, cutting a burning scar through the clouds. It hit the battlefield like a meteor. Sand and smoke erupted in a towering column. For a heartbeat, even the swarm hesitated. Out of that blaze stepped something no human soldier could mistake for one of their own. She was tall, easily a head taller than Ethan, her form encased in shimmering silver armor that seemed to flow like liquid metal. In her hands gleamed a curved blade, its edge glowing with an inner fire that hummed through the air. With a single swing, she split a brute in 2, the creature's armored body falling apart like paper. Ethan froze. His training told him what she was, a Alithian. A species humanity had only heard about in fragments, myths written into the archives of long-dead civilizations. They were supposed to have vanished millennia ago, consumed by their own wars. Yet here she was, alive, standing on a battlefield Earth had already lost. The warrior moved like a storm, each strike an elegant blur. Her blade carved arcs of light that shredded anything it touched. Drones were sliced mid-leap, brutes toppled, and the swarm's momentum faltered for the first time. She fought not just with skill, but with terrifying certainty, as though every motion was preordained. Her helmet opened with a hiss, revealing a face marked with faint, glowing runes etched into pale skin. Her eyes were liquid silver, burning with focus. She spoke, words sharp and musical in a tongue Ethan didn't understand. Before he could react, another brute lunged at him. Ethan pivoted, firing a burst into its chest, but its claw still raked his arm, tearing through armor. Blood sprayed across the sand. Pain lanced up to his shoulder. He stumbled, right into her. His blood splattered onto her blade. The weapon screamed. Not the metallic ring of steel, but a sound deeper, stranger, like the resonance of an ancient vow being awakened after ages of silence. Runes ignited across its length, lines of light crawling from the hilt to the tip, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. The alien warrior stopped mid-swing, eyes widening. She looked at him as though he had just done the impossible. Then, in flawless English, her voice trembled with something between awe and fear. "You are bound to me. By the vow—" Ethan blinked, still gripping his rifle with blood dripping down his arm. "What the hell does that mean?" The swarm shrieked louder as though recognizing the power now coursing through her blade. Their movements grew frantic, reckless, as if driven by a sudden terror. The alien warrior turned back toward them, lifting her glowing sword. Her words cut through the chaos like a prophecy. "The blade of Vera has chosen. Warrior and mate united in blood," Ethan swore under his breath. Outnumbered, outgunned, bleeding, but now somehow married to an alien with a god blade. The desert trembled. The true war had only just begun. The battlefield smelled of charred metal, scorched sand, and blood. Smoke curled from shattered turrets, and the cries of the dying swarm echoed into the desert night. Ethan Cole's arm burned where the brute had slashed him. But his eyes weren't on his wound. They were on the alien warrior whose blade now glowed with his blood. She stared at him like she'd just seen a ghost. Her grip on the curved sword tightened, the light along its runes pulsing faster, brighter, as though alive. For the first time since she appeared, her expression wavered, not focused warrior but stunned revelation. Ethan spat blood into the sand, forcing himself upright. "Lady, I don't know what you just said back there, but if it means what I think it means, this is not the time for it." She didn't answer at first. Instead, she swung the blade in a quick arc, cutting down 2 drones that had tried to flank them. The runes burned hotter, energy rippling from her strikes. The creatures didn't just fall, they disintegrated, torn apart by some deeper force. The other Valeth screamed as though sensing something sacred had been defiled. Finally, she turned back to him. Her voice was steady now, though there was an edge of urgency in it. "Your blood touched the blade of Vera. The bond is sealed. Warrior and mate, one soul shared between 2 bodies. Until death." Ethan's head spun. He could barely keep his rifle steady, and now she was throwing cosmic wedding vows at him. "Wait, did you just say mate? As in, like marriage?" Before she could reply, a brute the size of a tank smashed through the wall. Its claws raked the sand, mandibles clicking. Soldiers scattered, shouting. Ethan raised his rifle, aiming for its joints. But when he squeezed the trigger, something strange happened. His aim felt impossibly sharp. The shot wasn't wild, wasn't desperate. It landed square between 2 plates of armor, right where the brute's chest pulsed with soft light. The creature howled, collapsing. Ethan blinked, breath catching. He wasn't that good of a shot. He looked at the alien warrior. Her silver eyes glowed faintly brighter. "The bond shares strength," she said, her voice lower now, as though confessing something dangerous. "My power flows through you. And yours flows through me." He almost laughed at the absurdity, but there was no time. More of the swarm poured into the ruins, desperate, reckless. The bond had awakened something they feared. Together they fought as though they had trained side by side for years. Ethan fired in perfect rhythm, every shot finding a weak point, while she moved with inhuman grace, her blade blazing arcs of red and blue fire. Each time she swung, he felt the echo of it in his bones, like the universe had decided their fates weren't separate anymore. Around them, soldiers who had been seconds from breaking now rallied, inspired by the impossible sight, a human commander and a lost alien legend tearing through the swarm in tandem. The ground trembled with the weight of the dead as the Valeth line shattered. At last, silence stretched across the battlefield. The swarm lay in broken heaps, the survivors fleeing back into the dark desert. Ethan's chest heaved, sweat mixing with blood. He let his rifle hang limp at his side, turning toward the warrior. She sheathed the glowing blade across her back with reverence. Then she faced him fully, lowering her head in a gesture that was neither military nor human. It felt older, heavier. "I am Serenia Vera, last daughter of my house. By the vow I am yours." The words hit harder than any battle. Ethan staggered back a step, shaking his head. "Listen, Serenia, I didn't ask for this. I was just trying to survive the night." "The blade does not ask permission," she replied, her tone like steel. "It chooses. And it has chosen you." Ethan dragged a hand down his face, letting out a humorless laugh. "Figures. End of the world. And I get married by accident?" Her eyes narrowed slightly, not offended but not amused either. "Do not treat this lightly, human. The bond cannot be broken. Your life and mine are one thread now. If one is cut, the other follows." The weight of her words pressed on him more heavily than the wound in his arm. He glanced at his men, tired, bloody, looking to him for answers. Then back at her, an alien warrior tied to him by blood, a blade, and destiny. Somewhere in the distance, the swarm regrouped, their shrieks echoing faintly on the wind. The war wasn't over, but something had changed tonight. Something so ancient and powerful that even the Valeth were afraid of it. Ethan adjusted his grip on his rifle, forcing a grin despite the fear crawling at the back of his mind. Fine. If we're stuck together, then we'd better make it count. Serenya's silver eyes softened for just a heartbeat before she turned her gaze back to the desert horizon. Then let us fight as one, and may the swarm learn what it means to awaken the vow. The stars above seemed to tremble. Whatever destiny had just been set in motion, there was no undoing it now. The battlefield smoldered behind them as the last functioning Valeth frigate lifted into the sky. Its engines screeched, coughing smoke, but it climbed hard, tearing free of the desert's pull. From the observation deck, Ethan Cole watched the ground shrink into a blur of fire and blackened sand. Humanity's last outpost on Zerath 9 was nothing but wreckage now. Inside the captured ship, everything felt wrong. The walls pulsed faintly, alive with a sickly bioluminescence. Tubes of dark fluid ran like veins beneath the metallic plating. The Valeth didn't build machines. They grew them. Even walking through the corridors was unnerving, each step echoing on floors that flexed like cartilage. Ethan shoved the unease aside and focused on his men. Barely 30 survivors boarded with him, exhausted, hollow-eyed, running on nothing but desperation. They slumped against walls, rifles resting across their knees, staring at him for answers. He had none. The only one moving with certainty was the alien warrior, Serenya Vera. She stood at the helm, hands moving across controls that twisted like tendrils. Where humans saw madness, she saw order. Her silver eyes narrowed as she entered strings of symbols faster than Ethan could track. "You've flown one of these before?" he asked, voice low. "I was taught," she replied without looking back. "The Valeth stole much from my people. Some things I learned to take back." The frigate lurched, narrowly dodging a pursuing swarm of interceptors. Ethan staggered into the co-pilot's chair, gripping the seat hard. "Where exactly are we going?" Serenya's jaw tightened. "The vault, a place hidden in the folds between systems. The blade is awake, which means the Queen will come. If she reaches us before we unlock the vault's weapons, there will be no more humans left to save." Her words hit like cold iron. Ethan knew the reports. Colonies falling silent, fleets torn apart in ambushes. Humanity had thrown everything into this war. Still, the Valeth spread like fire across dry grass. The bond between him and Serenya pulsed faintly, tugging at the edge of his mind. He didn't understand it yet, but he could feel her emotions leaking into him. Calm focus layered over a deep, old sorrow. "Tell me straight," he said. "What is this vow? What the hell have I been dragged into?" Her fingers paused over the controls. She exhaled slowly, as though deciding how much truth he could handle. "The vow is older than your species. When my people fought, when they loved, they forged bonds through the blade, blood to blood. 2 warriors joined, sharing strength, senses, will. It was more than marriage. It was survival. None of us fought alone." Ethan leaned back, the hum of the ship filling the silence. "And now, that's us." She turned then, meeting his eyes with a steadiness that left him uneasy. "Yes, no Alethian ever bonded with a human before. Yet the blade accepted you. It sees something in your blood. Perhaps even you do not know what." He gave a dry laugh, rubbing the wound on his arm. "Story of my life. Wrong guy, wrong place, wrong time, and somehow it sticks." The corner of her lips almost curved, but she buried it quickly beneath stern composure. The ship jolted as alarms shrieked, red symbols flashing across the living dashboard. Ethan squinted at the alien script, but Serenya translated instantly. "They found us." Outside, black shapes emerged from the nebula like predators from mist. Dozens of swarm ships, wings gleaming with wet chitin, engines burning sickly green. They formed a net around the frigate, boxing it in. Ethan slammed his hand on the comm. "All hands, battle stations. If you're still breathing, you're fighting." The corridors filled with shouts as human survivors scrambled to turrets, slamming charge packs into alien cannons. The frigate groaned as it banked, energy fire slicing past. Ethan threw himself into the main gunner's chair. The controls were alien, twitching under his hands, but when he fired, the blast ripped through a swarm fighter with surgical precision. Too precise. He froze, realizing the aim wasn't his. The bond thrummed in his chest. Serena's focus bled into him, her calm, her clarity, guiding his hand like it was hers. "Keep shooting," she ordered, voice sharp. "I will guide," and he did. Each bolt tore ships apart with impossible accuracy. The frigate danced through enemy fire, Serena weaving it between explosions with fluid grace. For the first time, Ethan felt like he wasn't outmatched. Not completely, but then the comm cracked with a voice that chilled him to the bone. It wasn't human. It wasn't mechanical. It was a whisper of knives and rot, echoing through their skulls. "Child of Aelith," the voice hissed. "You cannot hide what is mine. Hand me the blade, or watch your bonded burn." Ethan's knuckles whitened on the controls. The Queen herself. On the view screen, her flagship emerged from the nebula, massive, grotesque, alive. Its hull was ribbed with bone, its eyes glowing green like a predator that had hunted for millennia, and across its surface, dozens of human prisoners dangled in cocoons, chained to the ship's exterior like trophies. Serena's face hardened, but Ethan saw the flicker of dread ripple through her. The bond didn't let him miss it. He swallowed hard, his voice low but fierce. "We're not handing her anything. Not the blade, not us, not them. We finish this." Her hand brushed the hilt of her sword, and for the first time she gave him a look that was not command, not judgment, just respect. "Then we go to war together." Ethan Cole. The frigate turned toward the flagship, engines burning bright, and the stars lit with fire. The nebula flared with light as the Valeth armada closed in. Their ships weren't just war machines. They were predators, black exoskeletons stretched across wings that beat like living things. Some hissed vapor trails like venom. Others cracked the void with electric pulses. All of them swarmed around the flagship, a fortress so massive it bent the starfield with its presence. Inside the captured frigate, alarms pulsed. Human survivors strapped into gunner chairs, sweat slicking their brows, every heartbeat louder than the klaxons. Ethan Cole steadied his breathing, hands locked on the firing grips. Across the command deck, Serena's silver eyes burned with focus, her blade resting in its sheath like a coiled storm. "They're not attacking yet," Ethan muttered. "Why wait?" Serena didn't look at him. "Because she wants us afraid. The Queen feeds on fear as much as flesh." Her words were proven right when the comm crackled alive, that voice slithering across their minds again, silken, cruel, inescapable. "You carry the blade of Vera. You carry what belongs to me. I have devoured worlds for less." The view screen shifted. The Valeth Queen filled it, her face both insect and nightmare, mandibles twitching as she spoke. Behind her, chained to the walls of her throne chamber, dozens of human captives hung in twisted resin pods. Some stirred weakly. Others were still, Ethan's jaw locked. He forced his voice steady. "You want the blade? Come and take it." The Queen laughed, a hollow sound like a hive collapsing. Brave words for prey. Then her eyes sharpened, all of them focusing on Ethan. "You are bonded to her, little human. Your blood sings in my hive. I will savor your ending most of all." The frigate shuddered. The swarm broke formation and attacked. Fire lanced across the void, green plasma beams searing past the hull. Explosions flared as human turrets spat defiance, taking down fighter after fighter. But the numbers were overwhelming. Every kill only drew more. Ethan felt Serena's presence press deeper into him. Her thoughts brushed his, calm amidst chaos. Steady. Do not think. Act. He obeyed. The main cannon boomed again and again, each shot tearing into enemy ships with unnatural accuracy. His body moved before his mind did, their bond blurring the line between them. The soldiers noticed, whispering prayers, shouting renewed war cries, clinging to the sight of a commander who suddenly never missed. But the Queen wasn't idle. Her flagship's maw opened, belching out a beast the size of a cruiser. It wasn't a ship, not entirely, more like a living missile, wings thrashing, body glowing with acid fire. It hurtled toward them, shrieking loud enough to rattle metal. Serena cursed in her tongue, hands flying across controls. The frigate rolled violently, barely skimming the monster's edge. Ethan fired at its chest, but the bolts ricocheted off hardened scales. The thing rammed their ship, slamming them sideways. Soldiers were thrown from their seats, alarms shrieking, shields down to 20%. Someone yelled. Ethan dragged himself back into the gunner's harness, blood dripping from his temple. The bond flared hot, Serenya's determination crashing into him like fuel. He snarled, aiming again, and fired where instinct, not training, told him. The shot bored through the beast's mouth, bursting it from the inside. Acid and fire painted the void. The frigate plunged through the wreckage. The crew roared in relief, but Ethan didn't celebrate. He knew it was only the beginning. Serenya's voice cut through the noise. The Queen's flagship must fall. Cut off the head, the swarm falters. Anything less, and this war is already lost. Her words were final, heavy with certainty. Ethan saw it too. Humanity couldn't keep running. They had to strike back, here and now. The Queen's mocking voice returned, venom sweet. Come then, bonded ones. Bring your blade. Bring your blood. I will break your union and feast on what remains. Ethan wiped the blood from his eyes and glanced at Serenya. For the first time, she didn't look like an untouchable legend. She looked like someone bracing for a fight she might not survive. Yet her eyes shone with fire. You ready for this? He asked, voice low. Her hand brushed the hilt of her glowing sword. I was born ready, but this time I do not fight alone. The frigate dove, breaking through waves of swarm ships. Plasma fire traced scars across its hull as it arrowed straight toward the monstrous flagship. Every survivor aboard knew what it meant. No turning back. Ethan's heart thundered. The bond thrummed with battle hunger and grim resolve. Whatever destiny had tied him to this alien warrior, it had led to this moment. The Queen's fortress loomed ahead, its gates opening like the jaws of a beast, and Ethan Cole whispered under his breath, Then let's cut the damn head off. The frigate rammed into the Queen's flagship with a bone-rattling crunch. Metal screamed. Alien resin cracked. Atmosphere vented in a violent hiss. The survivors clung to their restraints as the ship lodged halfway into the beast's hide. Breach secured! A soldier yelled, voice ragged with adrenaline. Ethan Cole ripped free of his harness. His chest ached from bruises, blood seeping through torn armor, but there was no time to hesitate. This was the endgame. Either they killed the Queen, or every sacrifice up to this point was meaningless. Serenya strode ahead, her blade blazing with crimson and silver light. The glow painted her armor like molten fire. The bond between them pulsed hot, sharper than ever, as if the ship itself was amplifying it. Ethan's every breath synced to hers, every nerve wired to her rhythm. The breech doors buckled. With a grunt, Ethan jammed an explosive charge into the seam. A thunderclap tore the metal apart, and they charged into the living corridors of the Queen's fortress. The interior was grotesque, a cathedral of flesh and bone. The walls throbbed like veins, slick with green ichor. Pods full of half-digested prisoners lined the chambers, their muffled screams vibrating through the resin. The air stank of rot and acid. The swarm came instantly. Smaller drones hurled themselves forward, shrieking, claws flashing. Ethan's rifle spat blue fire, each shot guided by the eerie clarity of the bond. Serenya moved like a whirlwind, her blade carving arcs of energy that left nothing standing. Every corridor they crossed was a gauntlet. Ethan's soldiers fought with the desperation of men and women who knew there was no escape. Either they carved a path or died here. Blood painted the floor. Limbs piled high. Still, the humans pressed on, yelling war cries that echoed against alien bone. At last, massive doors loomed before them, carved with symbols that burned faintly. The Queen's throne chamber. The doors slid apart. The room was vast, ceiling lost in shadow. The floor glistened like wet stone, veins pulsing beneath it. At the center, upon a dais of black resin, the Valeth Queen rose to her full height. She was enormous. 4 times the size of a human, wings spread wide, her crown jagged bone fused into her skull. Her body shimmered with layers of armor, black as midnight, and her many eyes glowed with cold, hateful light. Behind her, cocooned prisoners lined the walls, human faces pale with fear. Some still struggling weakly against their bonds. So, the Queen hissed, mandibles clicking. The bonded pair dares enter my sanctum. Her wings shivered, sending a gust of fetid wind across the chamber. The soldiers faltered, some gagging at the stench. Ethan forced his boots forward, rifle aimed high. "Your reign ends here," he spat. The queen's laugh rumbled through the chamber like thunder in a cavern. "I have ended empires greater than yours. Do you think one broken soldier and one relic of a dead race can undo me?" Serenya's blade flared. "Not relic, legacy." The queen moved first, an eruption of speed shocking for her size. Claws slammed into the dais, cracks rippling through the floor. Shockwaves sent soldiers tumbling. Ethan fired in bursts, shots searing across her armored chest, barely slowing her. Serenya met the charge head-on. Her sword clashed against the queen's claws, sparks and arcs of energy bursting outward. The force rattled the chamber. Ethan dove low, blasting at exposed joints. The bond pulled him into Sernea's rhythm. When she dodged, he was already rolling clear. When she struck, he was already lining up his shots. They weren't two fighters anymore. They were one weapon, two halves of the same fury. Still, the queen was overwhelming. One swipe hurled Cernea across the floor, her armor denting against the wall. Ethan felt the impact in his own ribs, pain flooding through the bond. He staggered, coughing blood, but refused to drop. The queen loomed over him, mandibles dripping acid. "I will enjoy peeling you apart, little human," Ethan snarled, slamming his rifle into her maw and pulling the trigger until it clicked empty. The blasts seared her face, forcing her back just enough for Cernea to recover. She leapt, blade blazing brighter than ever, driving it deep into the queen's shoulder. The queen shrieked, wings flailing. Black ichor gushed across the floor, hissing like boiling tar, but it wasn't enough. She ripped free, claws tearing wounds across Ethan's chest. Pain seared through both him and Cernea as the bond howled. He dropped to his knees, blood soaking his armor. The queen raised a claw for the killing blow. Through the haze, Ethan grabbed her mandibles with both hands, muscles straining, teeth clenched. His arms burned, bones threatening to snap, but he held her in place. "Now, Cernea!" With a scream that tore her throat raw, she drove the blade of Vera through the queen's heart. The weapon exploded with light. The chamber split with energy, runes blazing across the walls. The queen's body convulsed, a roar of pure hate echoing across the hive. Her chest erupted in fire, splitting her apart from the inside. The fortress trembled. Resin cracked. Cocooned prisoners spilled free as the entire structure began to collapse. Ethan slumped, bloodied and broken, as Cernea caught high. Him before he hit the floor. The queen's final scream faded into silence, and for the first time, the swarm was leaderless. The queen's death tore through the hive like a shockwave. Her psychic scream ripped the air, a howl so sharp the soldiers dropped to their knees, clutching their skulls. Then just as suddenly the sound broke into silence. The swarm that had once been relentless froze mid-motion. Their coordination shattered. The drones twitched, confused, leaderless. Some collapsed, writhing in spasms. Others scattered mindlessly into the void. The chamber groaned as the fortress ship began to disintegrate. Veins of resin split apart, hissing fluids spilling onto the floor. The cocooned prisoners slid free, coughing, gasping, eyes wide with terror. "Get them out!" Ethan shouted, though his voice cracked with blood. His chest was a ruin of slashes, armor split open. The soldiers rallied, dragging the freed captives toward the breach. Alarms blared as the structure shook violently, whole chunks of wall tearing free into the void. Serenya still held Ethan close, her blade dimming now that its purpose was fulfilled. She looked down at him, golden eyes blazing not with fire but something deeper. Fear. "Fear of losing him. You've given too much already," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Do not leave me here, human." Ethan forced a grin, though crimson leaked from the corner of his mouth. "I'm too stubborn to die easy." The floor ruptured behind them. A geyser of green ichor shot upward as the queen's corpse collapsed inward, her body splitting apart like rotten wood. The entire throne chamber buckled. "Move!" Ethan barked. Serenya slung his arm over her shoulder, carrying him as they sprinted through collapsing tunnels. Explosions rocked the hive, lighting the passageways in strobes of fire. Soldiers stumbled, some crushed by falling debris, but the survivors dragged the weak forward with unyielding grit. Humanity had bled too much to fall short now. They burst through the breach just as the hive's walls tore apart in a blinding eruption. Their frigate, half melted and broken, shuddered as they dove inside. The pilots slammed the engines to maximum, tearing away from the crumbling Leviathan. Behind them, the Queen's fortress imploded, folding in on itself before exploding into a starburst of green flame. The void was suddenly quiet. Ethan slumped against the deck, coughing blood. He tried to rise, but his body wouldn't obey. Around him, soldiers cheered weakly, some weeping, others embracing the freed prisoners. It was victory, but bought with a mountain of corpses. Serenia knelt beside him, pressing her forehead to his. Her blade flickered once, then dimmed to a dull glow, as if acknowledging the end of battle. You are mine, now and always. The vow has bound us. But vows mean nothing if you leave me behind. Her voice cracked at the last words. Ethan had never seen her falter, never seen her armor of pride fracture. His hand found hers, blood slicking their grip. Then I guess I'll have to keep breathing. If only to keep you from getting lonely. Her laugh was broken, half a sob. She pressed her other hand to his wounds, golden light sparking faintly from her palm. Energy flowed from her, weaving into his flesh, slowing the bleeding. But he saw the toll it took, the tremor in her arms, the exhaustion dragging at her features. You'll burn yourself out, he rasped. Better me than you, she whispered. But before she could give more, a medic shoved between them, dragging Cernea back. Let us work, alien. We can save him. She resisted for a heartbeat, then yielded, watching with clenched fists as humans fought to keep her bondmate alive. Hours later, when the ship limped into Allied space, word had already spread across the fleet. The Queen was dead. The swarm had fractured. Humanity, once prey, had delivered the killing blow. The war was not over, but its tide had shifted. Ethan survived, barely. His scars would remain, ugly reminders etched deep into his flesh. But he lived. Serenia never left his side. In the days that followed, the bond between them only deepened. Where once it had been a strange accident, it was now undeniable truth. His blood on her blade had tied them together. And together they had slain a monster that had haunted the stars for centuries. To the soldiers, they became symbols, the warrior and the alien bride, united by battle, unbreakable. To the swarm, they were nightmares whispered across the void. But to each other, they were simply what neither had dared to hope for in their lifetimes. Not relics. Not pawns of war, partners. And as the stars burned on, humanity carried a new legend forward, that in the darkest hour, when empires trembled and extinction loomed, one stubborn human and one ancient warrior answered the call together, bound by blood and unbroken by death.